In Venezuela, the first meeting of ministers and high authorities of the scientific and technological area of ALBA-TCP conclude. In Myanmar, an earthquake of magnitude 7.7 on the Richter scale shook the center of the country, leaving at least 144 people dead and severe damage to infrastructure. And for the first time since the ceasefire agreement of November 2024, the Israeli occupation forces launched attacks on the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Venezuela, the first meeting of ministers and high authorities of the scientific and technological area of ALBA-TCP conclude. The Executive Secretary of the islands, Jorge Arriaza, welcomed the guests, ministers from various countries, and urged the care of the people in the face of the new technologies dominated by the West. In addition, Arriaza emphasized that technological sovereignty should be built. The Executive Secretary also affirmed that the government's own capacities should be used to develop protection for the people from the danger of the technologies in the hands of the centers of powers.
With our own capabilities, with our own data and information storage centers. Take care of our people, protect our people from the dangers of these technologies that are now in the hands of billionaires, multimillionaires, power centers that threaten the minds, the spirit and the social life of the countries and peoples of the world.
Science and Technology Minister of Venezuela, Gabriela Jimenez, ensured that the proposal of President Nicolás Maduro aims at building up the future of the peoples of the Global South.
President Nicolás Maduro's proposal for ALBA is a plan to build up the future. It is a proposal that has been accepted by each of the member presidents of the alliance. What's its will? The proposal's will is to train our new young scientists, who do not have to travel to the old world, to the universities of the old world, to other hegemonic and dominant educational models, so that from our spaces they obtain the capabilities by means of our culture and our intercultural dialogue.
In a phone call with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro emphasized the significance of the UN system taking firm stance to protect the rights of the Venezuelan migrants. Through a communique, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Iván Gil emphasized the purpose of this request is to secure the immediate and unconditional release of the 238 compatriots unjustly detained in the concentration camps in El Salvador, where they have been imprisoned without any judicial process, and provide of the right to the defense. Venezuela rejects Chile's move to take before the ICC a case that has long been resolved in order to attack the sovereignty of Venezuela and please U.S. agendas. In this context, the Venezuelan Foreign Ministry published the following statements in social media. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela categorically rejects the absurd farce that the government of Chile intends to stage before the International Criminal Court based on lies and falsehoods that only exist in the imagination of those who have dedicated to turn foreign policy into a shitty spectacle, following the anti-Venezuelan policy line of the late Sebastián Piñera in the best Pinochetist style of creating false flags operation. Attempting to take an isolated case feed by lies to the ICC is not only legally unattainable, but also reveals a complete ignorance of how the international system and the RAM issue works. The ICC is not a court that fanciful fables in immature political intrigues, nor a stitch for media stunts. It is clear that the Chilean authorities have no idea of how these mechanisms operate, or worse still, that they are simply willing to distort them in order to align themselves with the interests of allies to justice. This position not only lacks a legal basis, but is also sustained by the vicious hatred against Venezuela, demonstrating the desperation to please agendas that come from U.S. seeks to erode the sovereignty of states. Chile, instead of lending itself to shameful maneuvers, should focus on its own serious internal issues, including the systematic violations of the human rights of the Mapuche people and the repressions of the social protests. Venezuela is a country that can give lessons about respect for human rights and the dignity of the people. We will not accept attacks from those who have made from institutional violence an everyday practice and who are now trying to divert attention from their own miseries with clumsy political maneuvers. With a civic act at the Colorado Party House and the participation of 4 presidents, Uruguay celebrated the 40th anniversary of the return of democracy to the country. The event was attended by the current president of Uruguay, Yamandu Orsi, and former president Julio María Sanguinetti, José Mujica, and Luis Alberto Lacalle Herrera, who debated for more than an hour, while former president Luis Lacalle Pou also sent a video with statements. In this context, Orsi celebrated the meeting and highlighted the democratic dynamic that exists in the country between the opposition and the government. For his part, former President José Pepe Mujica called for unity among Uruguayans. Well, let's take a very first break, but remember, you can join us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. Ecuadorian presidential candidate for the Citizens Revolution Party, Luisa González, urged the indigenous communities for unity by the time of her visit to their cities. González has complied with her set campaign agenda to disclose her government proposals nationwide ahead of the elections on April 13. Earlier on Thursday, the leftist leader stopped by the Puliqui city, where she highlighted that she will respect and defend consulted indigenous peoples in case of any oil and mining projects in the future. Furthermore, the presidential candidate promised to encourage bilingual intercultural education and to stand for the rights of the indigenous peoples obeyed by the 2008 Constitution. Meanwhile, President Daniel Noboa traveled to the United States, leaving his nation in the environmental emergency caused by the oil spill in Esmeraldas province, where the government had not found all solutions to the crisis triggered by the lack of water due to the polluted rivers. Noboa's visit to Miami occurred while the campaign for a presidential runoff was underway. In this regard, the Ecuadorian head of state took part on Wednesday of campaign actions after the National Electoral Council sent him a notification. Moving on, Myanmar declares a state of emergency in regions affected by the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that shocked the center of the country and so far left 144 people dead and severe damage to infrastructure. The tremor was recorded at 12:50 local time at the depth of 10 kilometers, and the epicenter was located about 17 kilometers from Mandalay, the second largest city in the Asian country, while 1.2 million inhabitants. The first images published by the country's media show collapsed buildings, temples, and structures. The effects of the earthquakes were also felt in Yangon, the main city of Myanmar, where buildings were evacuated. Meanwhile, the earthquake also hit Thailand, where residential buildings and offices were evacuated. Public broadcasters Thai PBS reported that collapse of a 30-story building under construction in the capital, which houses around 50 people, 7 of whom managed to escape, while the rest were trapped. According to the latest information, at least 8 persons have been found dead at the scene. The Indian government offered humanitarian aid to Myanmar and Thailand after a 7+ magnitude earthquake hit both nations. Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended his support to the government of Myanmar and Thailand to respond to the emergency arising from the natural disaster. The Prime Minister also requested to monitor the situation and to maintain contact through the Foreign Ministry. Modi instructed the local authorities to remain alert in case of possible aftershocks. After the 7.7 magnitude earthquake in northern Myanmar, Chinese authorities activated an emergency alert. Authorities report that the earthquake occurred approximately 284 kilometers from the Chinese border, 776 kilometers from the city of Kunming, capital of Yunnan province. They also point out that the earthquake had a 6.4 magnitude aftershock. Chinese seismic authorities emphasize that the earthquake affected key infrastructure such as the national railway network, so they will evaluate the situation and will carry out continuous analysis. South Korean authorities have contained the main blast in the country's large forest fire on record as rain and better weather allow more helicopters to fly and dump water down in the flames. The Minister of the Korea Forest Service reported that the main forests in 5 regions were under control by 5 p.m. local time. Spread by strong winds in bone-dry conditions, the wildfires killed at least 28 people and charred more than 45,000 hectares in the southern region. More than 30,000 people were displaced, many of them elderly. Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino says during a press conference that his country will not return to having U.S. military bases in response to reports fueled by Donald Trump's threats to recover the interoceanic canal.
Believe it or not, there will be no military bases of any power, be it the United States or any other part of the world. The neutrality treaty is respected, and the only country with the right to have a military presence in Panama or military security bases in Panama is our republic, the Republic of Panama. My government cannot go against history. This country fought to dismantle the U.S. military bases in our territory. From there to us cooperating, we have been doing it since the 90s, and especially today on issues such as drug trafficking, migration, etc. I sincerely hope that when the time comes and he presents his credentials, I will have a frank conversation with him. I have the best recommendations of him directly from Secretary of State Rubio himself. So we are going to understand each other. Both he and other authorities have expressed their interest in having a good relation with Panama.
Let's take a last break, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page, teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. One financial break, don't go away. Welcome back. For the first time since the ceasefire agreement of November 2024, the Israeli occupation forces launched attacks on the Lebanese capital, Beirut. The Zionist regime attacked the Lebanese city in retaliation for 2 alien rockets fired from Lebanese territory north of Tel Aviv. The Israeli authorities described the alleged attacks as a flagrant violation of the agreements between Israel and Lebanon and a direct threat to the Israeli people. At the same time, the Israeli army announced that its troops have begun to mobilize in southern Lebanon in order to neutralize the movements of the Lebanese resistance movement Hezbollah. The Lebanese government urged the international community to exert more pressure on the Israeli regime to stop its aggressions towards southern border towns. The Prime Minister Nawaf Salam issued a statement to request the Lebanese army to open the necessary investigations to hold those responsible for the attack on the southern border. In addition, the authority noted that military forces will resume their operations to prevent the spread of violence in the region. Meanwhile, the Hezbollah Lebanese resistance movement reaffirms its commitment to reach a ceasefire deal, and it denied any involvement in the recent strikes on northern Israel. The Israeli occupation forces had mounted nighttime attacks in the Gaza Strip, which killed at least 14 Palestinians. Outlets informed that Israeli warplanes had dropped bombs on Gaza, Rafah, and Khan Yunis cities. They further reported Asani strikes on the Zaytun town, which left 8 civilians casualties, including a baby who had been rescued from the house's rubble. Meanwhile, Israeli shelling on eastern Khan Yunis injured 2 civilians, including a child. Official sources registered more than 855 deaths and almost 1,900 injured as a result of both the broken ceasefire deal by Israel on March 18 and the resumption of the genocidal Israeli offensive against the Gaza Strip. The United Nations warned that M23 rebels have threatened to expand their riots to the Sopo and Myanmar provinces in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. On the United Nations Security Council meeting, the head of the UN Stabilization Mission in the DRC, Bintou Keita, stressed that the M23 rebels, after having occupied North and South Kivu with the support of Rwanda, were advancing towards Walikale. Therefore, the entity ensured that M23 was threatening and endangering the rest of the neighboring countries. In this regard, Keita denounced the progressive imposition of the parallel administration by the rebels. The UN representative acknowledged that the ceasefire deal had not been respected. So she urged the African Union to appoint a mediator to lead peace efforts in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Russian government denounced that the Ukrainian regime violated the truce agreement by continuing its attacks on Russian energy facilities. The Russian Defense Ministry said that Ukrainian forces on Friday morning launched an attack on the Sunshu gas metering station, causing the energy facility to be effectively destroyed. The gas metering station is part of the infrastructure through which one of the largest supply corridors of Russian natural gas to Europe used to pass. Earlier in the day, the Russian anti-aircraft defense in Saratov province intercepted 19 UAVs targeting the infrastructure of the oil refineries in the city. The world commemorates World Al-Quds Day, declared in 1979 in solidarity with the Palestinian resistance and struggle against all forms of oppression. Under the slogan, faithful to the commitment of Jerusalem, citizens in Iran, India, and Yemen mobilized to reaffirm their commitment and historical loyalty to the Palestinian people, and to make possible the struggle for the recognition of the sovereign state of Palestine, in addition to rejecting the present escalation of violence in continuation of the Israeli genocide against the Gaza Strip in the occupied territories of the West Bank. The Islamic community of the world ratifies its political commitment to the Palestinian cause and resistance against the Israeli occupation on the last Friday of Ramadan. In this context, close to 75,000 worshippers gathered to pray at the last Friday of Ramadan at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. The prayers took place in the midst of growing tensions due to the recent Israeli military offensive in the Gaza Strip and the military escalation in Lebanon. During Ramadan, the invading Israeli regime banned entry to Jerusalem to Palestinian men and women over the age of 50. In this regard, worshippers had that only 5% of the faithful were able to reach the Al-Aqsa Mosque for Friday prayers in East Jerusalem, a territory legally occupied by Israel since 1967 Middle East War. And now we change topics. The Vice Minister of Heritage and Creative Cultural Industry of Bolivia's Juan Carlos Cordero officially inaugurated the the fifth Santa Rosa of the Cuevo 2025 International Festival of the Arts. Over 100 creators from 9 countries starts in this Festival of Culture in the remote areas of Santa Rosa de Cuevo, departments of Santa Cruz, with the premises of merging simplicity and conceptualism. The festival follows a valid option since its first edition in April 2016, consisting of making art with whatever can be found in the environment. The list of participants includes creators from Bolivia, Italy, the US, Germany, Argentina, Belgium, Brazil, Cuba, Grenada, and Japan, and various regions and communities of the host country. And with that, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials, we're on Facebook and X, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.